Afternoon, ma'am. Let's start with your license and registration, please.
Is that why I'm being stopped?
We'll talk about that in a second. Go ahead and hand those over.
Officer, am I being detained or what?
I'm asking for your documents. It's a lawful request. Non-compliance can lead to further issues.
Officer, I am a federal director. I have clearance for classified...
On a quiet afternoon in Prince George's County, the body camera worn by Officer Mark Russell captured something no police department ever wants the public to see. What should have been a routine 2-minute traffic stop spiraled into an incident so reckless, so blatantly unjustified, it triggered a federal review, a media firestorm, and ultimately a lawsuit demanding $12 million. And the moment he chose to pull over that black woman, a woman he never expected to outrank him, is where it all began. Before we go any further, comment where in the world you're watching from, and make sure to subscribe because tomorrow's story is one you don't want to miss. Officer Russell had a reputation in the precinct. Supervisors called it aggressive policing, but colleagues knew the truth. Black drivers were almost always the targets. Complaints had accumulated over the years, filed by drivers who said stops escalated for no reason, yet nothing had been done. Today, the camera would capture what many had whispered about for years. He was scanning the road when a gray federal sedan appeared, clean, unassuming, cruising at the speed limit. He leaned toward his partner, Officer Tyler Briggs, muttering under his breath, "That one, she doesn't belong here." Briggs's face tightened. "You sure?" he asked quietly. He knew Russell's history, how minor things could turn into confrontations, but he didn't speak louder. He knew from experience Russell wouldn't listen. Russell flicked on the lights without hesitation. The cruiser's siren cut through the afternoon calm, bouncing off passing cars. The sedan slowed, pulling safely to the side. Inside was Maya Harrison, 43, federal director, seasoned government official, returning from a secure briefing. She kept her hands visible on the steering wheel, a badge clipped inside her console catching the sunlight. Calm and composed, she had no idea the officer behind her had already decided her fate. Russell approached her window with a rigid, measured step. The body cam captured every movement, the slight tilt of his chin, the tension in his shoulders, the way his eyes lingered not on the car's registration, not on her driving, but on her presence itself. "License and registration," he barked. No greeting, no explanation, only authority and suspicion. Maya responded, voice steady, eyes on him. "May I ask why I'm being stopped, officer?" Russell's gaze flicked to the badge inside the console, recognizing her rank for the first time, but instead of stepping back, he doubled down. "License, registration, now." Briggs's shift uneasily behind him, glancing at the car, at Maya, at Russell. "Mark, maybe we should..." Russell cut him off with a tight nod, silent, unmoved. For him, this wasn't about procedure, it was about control. Maya handed her documents carefully, her hands still on the steering wheel as she explained, "I haven't violated any traffic laws. I'm returning from a federal briefing." Russell barely listened. "Step out of the vehicle," he said abruptly. Maya paused, assessing him, remaining calm. "Am I being detained?" "You're being asked to step out," he repeated. The body cam recorded every second, capturing not only the exchange, but also the subtle tension between the two officers. Briggs looked like he wanted to intervene, but held back, aware he had no authority over Russell's decisions. Even in bright daylight, the interaction carried a threatening undertone. Every movement, every word amplified the imbalance of power. Russell was aggressive, confident in his bias. Maya was composed, aware of her rights, but wary of the escalation she was already facing. The scene drew attention from passing drivers, some slowing down to watch, others caught in the reflected red and blue lights bouncing off the sedan's surface. The atmosphere, though public, felt controlled entirely by Russell. One wrong tone, one unnecessary assumption, and the situation could spiral, and it almost did. Maya tried again, her tone firm but calm. "Officer, I'm a federal director. I have clearance for classified operations. This stop is unnecessary." Russell hesitated slightly, caught off guard for a fraction of a second, but then shook his head and leaned closer, speaking over the top of her words, "Step out, now." Briggs's body cam recorded his uneasy glance toward Russell, then to Maya. He muttered under his breath, "This isn't right." The stop, meant to last minutes, had already escalated beyond reason. Every second captured on the body cam would later be scrutinized, played in courtrooms, broadcast in news segments, and shared across social media. And in that moment, the stage was set. A minor traffic stop had transformed into a story about power, bias, and accountability, a story that would eventually cost the department $15 million. But at this precise point, Maya remained calm, professional, and aware of her rights, a stark contrast to the officer whose personal prejudice had driven him to act recklessly in broad daylight. The camera, the world, and history were silently watching. Maya Harrison's hands stayed firmly on the steering wheel, her pulse steady despite the red and blue lights reflecting harshly across her dashboard. Officer Mark Russell loomed over the driver's side, body rigid, eyes sharp, every movement captured by his own body cam. He was confident, almost smug in the authority he believed he had, but unaware that this stop was about to become the wrong decision of his career. "Step out of the vehicle," Russell demanded again, voice low but firm, carrying the weight of unnecessary power. Maya exhaled slowly, keeping her tone controlled. "Officer, I'd like to understand why I'm being asked to step out. I haven't committed a traffic violation." The words barely registered with him. To Russell, reasoning had no place here. His bias had already determined the narrative. A black woman in a well-maintained sedan was automatically suspicious. The body cam captured it all. His hesitation, the way his jaw tightened when she spoke, the subtle flare of impatience in his eyes. Briggs, standing slightly behind him, shifted uncomfortably. "Mark, we don't need to escalate." Russell cut him off with a glare. "Just follow my lead." Maya slowly unclasped her seatbelt, hands visible at all times, stepping out as instructed, but each movement calculated, professional. She was aware that every second, every gesture was being recorded, and she could feel the tension radiating from both officers. One was uneasy, one was reckless, and she was caught between the two. Russell circled the car like a predator, eyes scanning her, the interior, and her posture, ignoring all signs of compliance. "Do you know why I stopped you?" he asked, though he already knew the answer. In his mind, her presence on that road was reason enough. "I'm not sure," Maya replied evenly. "Please clarify. I'm complying with your request, but I need to understand the justification." He didn't answer. Instead, he motioned for Briggs to check her documents. The younger officer hesitated, glancing between Russell and Maya, clearly conflicted. When he finally stepped forward, the tension in his body spoke louder than words. Something about this stop felt wrong. Maya's voice broke the silence, steady and authoritative. "I am Maya Harrison, Federal Director. I hold security clearance at a level higher than any officer in this department. I am fully aware of my rights, and I expect to be treated accordingly." Russell froze briefly. Recognition flickered in his eyes, but instead of de-escalating, his pride and stubbornness took over. "Identification doesn't change anything. You step aside now." Every second dragged, the air thick with frustration. Passers-by slowed down, curious, unsure of what was happening, while Russell's body cam continued to roll, recording the tension, the subtle microaggressions, the way authority collided with prejudice. Maya, remaining calm, observed every detail. She noticed the slight tremor in Briggs' hands, the way Russell's grip tightened on his belt. She could see how unprepared he was to handle someone who refused to be intimidated, someone whose career demanded respect and whose life experience matched her authority. "Officer," she said, voice firmer now, "this stop is unnecessary. I am requesting that you follow proper procedure. You do not have the right to escalate without cause." Russell stepped closer, the body cam capturing the aggressive posture, the tilt of his chin, and the tension in his shoulders. "Listen, I'm in charge here. Step aside." Maya refused, not with words, but with stance. Hands visible, head held high, composure intact. The contrast was striking. One man abusing power based on bias, one woman asserting authority through reason, calm, and experience. The power imbalance was visible, but her confidence began to shift the psychological weight in the interaction. Russell barked again, this time louder, more forceful. "I said, step aside, now." "Sir, I am fully compliant, but this stop is unlawful. You are escalating without cause. I am recording this interaction as well." Russell paused, momentarily thrown off. The recognition that she wasn't just another driver, that she had authority, legal knowledge, and composure seemed to clash with his perception of control. Briggs whispered to Russell, barely audible, "Mark, she's serious. Maybe slow down." Russell's face flushed with frustration, his ego bruised by her calm defiance. For the first time, the body cam captured a flicker of uncertainty in the man who had believed he held complete control. Meanwhile, Maya's inner focus never wavered. She calculated every move, aware that this encounter could escalate further, that her life, career, and principles were on the line. She kept her voice steady, words precise. Each sentence was a measured step towards ensuring accountability. The tension became palpable. Pedestrians walking nearby felt it, drivers slowed, and the body cam silently recorded every micro-gesture, every sign of aggression, bias, and courage. Russell stepped back slightly, clearly frustrated that the power dynamic wasn't in his favor. The incident, meant to assert authority over a driver he deemed suspicious, had begun to unravel in daylight. Maya's composure contrasted sharply against the officer's growing hostility. She wasn't just defending herself, she was setting the stage for accountability, making it clear that bias and recklessness would not go unchecked. In broad daylight, with multiple witnesses and the body cam rolling, the stop had already escalated beyond a simple traffic violation. It was now a story about prejudice, authority, and the consequences of crossing someone who understood the law, her rights, and her own power. And as the minutes passed, the unfolding confrontation would become the foundation of a federal lawsuit seeking $15 million, one that would shine a light on patterns of abuse, bias, and recklessness in law enforcement, all captured in vivid, undeniable footage. The moment Maya Harasses stepped back into her sedan, the reality of what had just happened began to sink in. The encounter, captured in crystal-clear footage on Russell's body cam, had already left a mark, not just on her, but on the officers involved, the department, and anyone who would eventually see the recording. By the next morning, clips of the stop had begun circulating quietly online, snippets of red and blue flashing against Maya's calm face. Social media accounts began dissecting every second, the officer's aggressive posture, his refusal to explain the stop, the words he barked over her, and most importantly, Maya's composed, authoritative responses. The reactions ranged from outrage to disbelief. People were asking, how could this happen in broad daylight with a federal director in full compliance? Within hours, the Internal Affairs Division of the police department was alerted. Supervisors watched the body cam, faces pale as Russell's pattern of biased behavior became unmistakable. Complaints from prior incidents were now suddenly undeniable evidence of reckless misconduct. Meanwhile, the department released a statement attempting to frame the stop as routine, but the footage told a completely different story. The public wasn't buying it. Maya, however, didn't react emotionally on social media. She picked up her phone, dialing the number of her legal team. Her voice was calm, deliberate, and precise, the same voice she had used when negotiating sensitive national security matters. "I want a full review of this stop," she said, "and I want to know what legal remedies are available. We're holding them accountable." By mid-afternoon, her lawyers began outlining a federal lawsuit, citing violations of her constitutional rights, abuse of authority, and racial profiling. Each detail was painstakingly gathered from the body cam footage: Russell's tone, his refusal to justify the stop, his escalation despite her calm compliance. They were building a case so strong that the department could not ignore it. In the background, the media caught wind of the story. Clips from the body cam, carefully edited to highlight the confrontation, began appearing on news outlets. Anchors recounted the events, emphasizing Maya's professionalism and the officer's bias. Headlines included words like reckless, abuse of power, and federal director targeted. Online discussions exploded. People debated, criticized, and shared the footage endlessly. Every share, every comment, every debate fueled the story further. Inside the legal strategy meeting, Maya was calm but determined. "This isn't just about me," she told her team. "It's about accountability. It's about showing that bias and reckless authority have consequences." Her lawyers nodded. Every word she said reinforced the narrative. She was not only a victim of injustice, but also a leader in the fight against it. Meanwhile, Officer Russell was feeling the weight of public scrutiny. His supervisor confronted him privately, referencing prior complaints, and the officer could sense the tide turning. His partner, Briggs, who had been uneasy from the beginning, watched silently as the ramifications became unavoidable. The stop that had begun as a moment of unchecked bias was now the focal point of national attention. Maya's story began to resonate with many who had witnessed or experienced similar encounters. Civil rights groups reached out, offering support and calling for transparency. Online forums debated the broader implications, connecting this incident to systemic issues in policing. Every viewer, every comment, every share magnified the impact. By the evening, the legal team had finalized their filing strategy. The lawsuit would demand $15 million, a number chosen not arbitrarily, but as a statement, a reflection of the severity of the violation, the disregard for rights, and the pattern of misconduct by the officer and department. It wasn't about personal gain, it was about accountability and precedent. As the documents were drafted, Maya sat quietly, reflecting on the afternoon's events. She knew the confrontation could have escalated differently, that bias and authority could have caused irreversible harm, but the combination of her composure, her knowledge of the law, and the body cam recording ensured that justice would have a voice. The officer's actions, once thought to be unassailable, had been documented in a way that left no room for deniability. Across social media, the story continued to grow. Comment sections filled with outrage, support, and debate. Viewers were drawn to the raw contrast, a woman asserting rights calmly against an officer wielding unchecked authority. Each clip, each analysis, each discussion drew people deeper into the narrative. By the time the lawsuit was formally filed, the story had already captured national attention. Headlines highlighted not only the amount demanded, but also the courage and precision with which Maya handled the confrontation. And as the world watched, it became clear this wasn't just a traffic stop anymore. It was a landmark case, a story of injustice exposed, and a battle for accountability. The courtroom was tense, almost oppressive, as Maya Harrison entered. Bright sunlight poured through the high windows, reflecting off polished wood and the stern faces of those present. Cameras were not allowed inside, but reporters filled the hallways, ready to relay every detail to the public. What began as a routine traffic stop had escalated into a $15 million federal lawsuit, and today the world would witness the reckoning. Officer Mark Russell sat across the room, shoulders tight, jaw clenched. The weight of every microaggression, every biased assumption, every aggressive word from that afternoon now hung in the air. He was facing accountability in a way he had never anticipated. His partner, Tyler Briggs, shifted uncomfortably beside him, clearly aware that this was the moment their actions, or inaction, would be scrutinized fully. Maya, composed as ever, took her seat at the plaintiff's table. She had spent hours with her legal team preparing, reviewing body cam footage, and rehearsing precise language for her testimony. She didn't just represent herself, she was speaking for every person who had faced unnecessary stops, aggressive policing, or discrimination that escalated without justification. The judge entered, and the courtroom fell silent. The trial began with a recap of the incident, the stop, the interaction, the escalation. The body cam footage was played in full, every pause, every word, every detail captured from Russell's perspective. The judge, the jury, and the audience watching online were confronted with the truth. A routine traffic stop had turned into blatant misconduct. Russell's defense faltered as inconsistencies became impossible to ignore. Supervisors' testimonies, prior complaints, and internal reports aligned perfectly with the footage. The pattern of biased enforcement was undeniable. Maya's testimony was the highlight of the trial. Calm, measured, but firm, she recounted every moment, every interaction. She didn't shout, she didn't lose composure, yet every word carried the weight of experience and authority. Her ability to remain professional while asserting her rights made a profound impact on the jury. The contrast between her conduct and Russell's reckless behavior was stark, visceral. Outside the courtroom, social media erupted with support for Maya. Clips of her calm assertions, news commentary analyzing the case, and articles highlighting the abuse of authority flooded timelines. Public opinion had already sided strongly, amplifying the pressure on the department. As the trial progressed, it became clear that the lawsuit was not just about money. It was about accountability, reform, and sending a message that unchecked bias could no longer be unpunished. Russell and the department faced not only financial consequences, but a public reckoning that could change careers. Finally, after days of testimony and evidence presentation, the jury deliberated. The courtroom waited in silence, tension thick enough to feel in every heartbeat. When the verdict was announced, in favor of Maya Harrison with a settlement of $15 million, relief, vindication, and justice mingled in the room. Maya's legal team exhaled, photographers captured the moment, and the narrative of accountability was cemented. Officer Russell faced suspension and retraining, a clear statement that personal bias and reckless authority had consequences. Officer Tyler Briggs, though not the primary actor, also faced scrutiny for his silence during the incident. Outside the courthouse, Maya addressed reporters briefly, her voice steady but passionate. "This isn't just about me," she said. "It's about ensuring that no one faces unjust treatment because of who they are, and holding those in power accountable. Bias and recklessness cannot be ignored." And as the media coverage spread across the nation, the story sparked discussions far beyond Prince George's County. People debated policies, accountability, and personal responsibility. Viewers on YouTube, TikTok, and social media shared, commented, and discussed, the narrative reaching millions, educating and engaging. Now, here's where you come in, because the story doesn't end with Maya. Imagine this. What if every person who faced bias, harassment, or unjust authority stood up with knowledge, composure, and support? What if accountability became the rule, not the exception? Comment below what you would have done if you were in Maya's shoes. And if you believe people in power should always be held accountable, smash that subscribe button and hit the notification bell, because tomorrow we bring you another story of courage, injustice, and truth that you won't want to miss. The $15 million lawsuit wasn't just a settlement. It was a message, a warning, a lesson in justice, courage, and the power of remaining calm while demanding accountability. And while the officers learned the hard way, the public learned something even more important. Every action has consequences, and every injustice can be challenged.